We should talk about, some of the manga we've been reading, including just a few things from Jump, such as the newest one-shot from Naoshi Komi, Starting Point, or Ino Genten, which I believe we mentioned on the show a couple episodes back as basically a one-shot that was a part of this collection of one-shots from returning Jump veterans such as Tite Kubo and of the like. I forget. I think Shimabukuro might have had one. I forget off the top of my head.
Shimabukuro did. Nusio Isen had one. And there's a large list of them that they're doing for the 50th anniversary that they're just like spacing out.
A lot of them have new one-shots coming. This is the only one we received so far, but I'm sure that we will get, like, the Tite Kubo one and the Shimabukuro one at some point.
Yeah, hopefully.
I'd have to imagine.
I would hope so. That's just something I kind of want from the Viz Jump in general is, because I understand that they can't always add new series to the lineup because of space and whatnot. So at the very least, I'm always just looking forward to whether they can... whether they ever have the space to just put in a new one-shot every once in a while, because obviously those don't take nearly as much dedication as a weekly serial, so... But, I guess, Sid, what is this new one-shot from Komi all about?
Man, it's been a month, but to describe it, basically, there's this guy who really likes video games named Takumi Tomouchi, and he loves this fighting game called Kodas. That's what it's called. It's CODAS, and it's an acronym. I don't know what it's an acronym for, but it's like a big fighting game that people play around the world, and they play online and stuff, and it's like a one-on-one fighting game, and whoever knocks out the other player wins. So it's pretty simple fighting games. No 3 versus 3 like your ArcSys games, but anyway, he's pretty decent at it, or at least he thinks at it, but then he realizes he's not so good when he gets schooled by the class rep, Satsuki Minahara, who he thought was just like this bookworm, super serious, studious student, but turns out that she is actually like a super good fighting game player and is a part of the video game club. And so she invites him to the club, and he decides to strive to get better because everyone at the club is aiming to become pros in esports. And he doesn't even know what esports are, so, like, he's totally out of the loop. But, like, once he realizes you can actually make a career out of playing games, he decides, yeah, that's my path. That's what I'm gonna do for a living. So that's what he decides to do. So he basically, like, joins the club, and then they make him do some menial chores at the start. But then slowly he starts being able to play games, and then by being in the club, he starts to get better. He learns the class rep's motivation, and that inspires him. And then, like, just when Satsuki is, like, about to attend the national tournament for Kodas, guess what would happen?
Truck-Kun's cousin Carcoon comes.
Oh, I was exactly going to say that, Leroy. But yes, Truck-Kun's less remembered, but still prevalent cousin Truck-Kun comes to finish her off, but it doesn't succeed, and she just gets thrown into the hospital, but her arms are messed up, so she can't play fighting games for a few years because she needs to, like, recover.
Truck-Kun and his fam really need to get their game good. I mean, first the Fuka anime, they failed to run over Fuka, and now this, I mean, they've just really let it go. What happened to the good old days of Truck-Kun and his fam?
Succeeded in the manga continuity. Truck-Kun's batting average is pretty good, usually.
Okay, true.
It's just Car-Kun. I don't know, Car-Kun's more hit and miss, even though there's more cases of cars running over and killing people, but not in manga. In manga, it's always Truck-Kun. But anyway, since Satsuki can't fight in the tournament, Takumi goes to do it instead and, kind of symbolically win for her, like, to show that she can also succeed and, like, inspire her again and, like,
Yeah, and then it just kind of ends there, really.
Yeah.
Yes. So, I I talked about this before on Stammer Stream when I was a guest on there a few weeks ago. And I think my main takeaway from this was like, and this is an interesting premise, and definitely like esports is like a subject that like would be great for a shonen manga.
Yes.
But I don't think that this premise so far has been refined in terms of like the presentation of the characters and also like how Komi has visualized the fighting game.
Yeah, like you don't really get like a good sense of it actually being a fighting game. Like it just feels like some weird simulation.
A lot of the action sort of felt cluttered to me. Like half the time I couldn't really tell what was going on personally.
Like, the first time I read this, like, I just would basically just skim over the panels where there's actual fighting, because you can barely tell what's going on.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't look like any fighting game anyone would play, because there's no backgrounds, it's just, like, some weird grid, and I don't understand, like, the characters, they're, like, weirdly over-designed, but at the same time not detailed enough.
He's also not using a fight stick.
There's no fight stick. So I don't know, like, who would play this or why. And we don't know the rules of the game. It's like, whoa, it's a one-on-one fighting game. That's, like, the most basic thing. Like, what are, like, the specific mechanics that make this game interesting? Like, there's, like, a lot of deep stuff into playing a fighting game and being good at a fighting game. And, like, the manga doesn't touch upon that at all. Like, it gives just a broad overview of, like, what esports and professional esports is, but doesn't like actually get into what the game is and how they actually get good at the game. So that's like a big thing missing.
So you guys want to know what I think? I think the biggest problem with this one shot is that it's a one shot. I think that's its biggest problem, is that the premise itself is really interesting, and I fully agree with Sid that at some point, I was going to say I was surprised that this hasn't happened yet, but as the characters in the one-shot kind of comment that esports, especially I guess in Japan, are still a fairly new kind of thing, a fairly recent kind of thing, like a recent phenomenon that's only just now becoming a little more, I guess, not mainstream, a little more respected and whatnot. And recognized, yes. And I really do think this would have made a better series. Like, if Jump next week were to come out and say, yeah, we're doing an esports manga, I would read that from chapter 1. I would be totally invested in that. But I'm also not sure if Komi's the right person to tackle the subject from what we've been given with this one shot. But again, that could also be because of the fact that this was just a one shot, not a full series, that maybe that's why Komi couldn't go into particular, like he doesn't have the time to go into stuff like the particular mechanics of the fighting game and whatnot. And I also think because of how much, how many pages and how much space he has to tell the story, that I honestly think the third act is very rushed, and it's supposed to be really emotional. And I wanted to feel it, but I just wasn't.
Like if you were to compare this to like his last one shot, Tokidoki.
Now that was a perfect one shot. That was like a complete story.
Tokidoki is like a perfect short story. It feels like a very kind of natural flow and feels very much made for that kind of like a short one chapter kind of depiction. While this kind of just feels like a prototype for an idea Komi has.
Yeah, I mean, it didn't feel like a complete story. It felt like a starting point for a larger series. But I think it was also a little rushed. It was like a couple chapters crammed in together, because there's a lot of stuff that's being glossed over. I mean, it's very just focused on like the development of the two leads, Takumi and Sasuke.
Yeah.
So, like, a lot of the time it's just focused on describing their characters and why they like the games. But it doesn't, again, I think to make a good manga about esports, you need to get into the actual games. You need to really flesh them out and make the games feel like something people will play. And Komi didn't really do that, because I don't understand why this game is popular or why people would play it. And I don't understand the mechanics and how the fighting works. So
Yeah, like, I wouldn't be opposed to him, like, making this into, like, a full series, but based off this, I don't really have a strong confidence that he'd handle it well.
I mean, maybe if he had more time. I mean, Komi's great strength is, like, characters, so I'm sure that foundation's pretty strong. Like, I like the backstory of Satsuki and why she is so enamored with fighting games and was inspired to become a professional gamer. But I think that, again, he needs to, like, focus more on the game and, like, really get into describing that, because that's what a lot of the great sports manga do, is that they really spend some time really getting into what the game is. And so you kind of know what it's all about, even if you've never played it, and you can get interested and invested in it. Like, like iShield 21 spends a bunch of time describing the game. Yeah, so, like, stuff like that, they spend time actually trying to go over, like, the rules and, like, how the game actually works. So that needs to happen. Especially since, with like, a fighting game, there's, like, just so much more involved that's, like, difficult to just get a grasp on if it's, like, a nebulous concept. So you need to really get into the details and the mechanics of, like, why this thing is successful and difficult to play. Because, like, for most button mashers out there, you're not going to really get why this is hard.
Yeah, Komi really does just kind of present, like, a very bare bones game. Like, hey, what kind of game is it? It's a fighting game. What do? You fight.
Here's your generic 6-button fighting game with your super generic character models. Yeah, just go play it, guys.
You know what Komi should have done? You know what a Shueisha should have done? They should have tied this into Dragon Ball FighterZ. That should have been the fighting game they were playing.
That would have been amazing, actually.
Wouldn't that have been such a great hook?
That would have been so meta. Like, Jesus.
Yeah. Like, everyone reading Shonen Jump knows what Dragon Ball is. They know how that's supposed to be. They'll know that, oh, what? This guy's a Yamcha player and he's beating a Goku player? Whoa! He has to be really good if he's a Yamcha player.
I mean, those Yamcha players are pretty OP, man. That a quarter circle forward is pretty tough.
Yamcha is actually pretty good in the game.
I have whooped so many people's asses online with Yamcha. It's amazing.
Oh, that sounds great.
What's your team in fighters?
I'm kind of swapping around right now. I'm using like Yamcha, Frieza, and Trunks.
Interesting.
That's an interesting combo. But no, yeah, great idea for a series, but yeah, this to me felt like a Cliff Notes version of an entire series in like, what was it, 50, 60 pages? It felt like it was a long one. But I mean, I would like to see more.
Yeah, I'd like to see more. I always would like to see more from Komi. He's a great writer. And I definitely would like to see this idea fleshed out into a series format. Maybe Komi will be the one to do it. Maybe someone else will, but regardless, it's a great idea that definitely should happen eventually. And I hope that Komi also, returns to the full series eventually. Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed his previous one-shot. I still like this, even though I have some problems with it. And, I just always like seeing his stuff. So, hoping for more from him.
Guys, I think a great second choice for an author to make an esports manga would be Togashi, because he would definitely go out of his way to explain how an entire game works, because he totally hasn't done that before.
Yeah,
oh god.
He would, but he might but he'll come up with a bunch of rules that will not matter at the end. He will spend pages devoted to describing all the cards when most of them are not relevant to the story.
I think he did that in like his last like one shot about the card game.
I remember that.
Yeah, I remember there being like a lot of like rules like just being listed off on some of the pages.
Oh, Togashi.
Yeah, I mean, he wanted to make that. I guess he has made that card game manga. I don't know if he plans to still do that as a series.
Yeah, I still think he'll probably try to make it as a full series.
Maybe that'll just be the next arc of Hunter x Hunter. He'll just cram all his ideas into one series, like Oda does, because he knows that he won't have time to do another one after he finishes Hunter x Hunter.
Eventually, Hunter x Hunter is just going to become a sports manga.
Yeah, I mean, it was for a brief period of time where they played that dodgeball game.
They're going to start playing golf, and then Robo's going to appear. And,
a crossover.
Yeah.
I mean, that'd be good. I mean, Takashi was Fujimaki's editor, so, like, they could totally collab. I'm sure they have a good working relationship.
Then Crollo's gonna steal, like, everyone's, like, powers and, like, channel it through the golf ball or some shit. I don't know.
I don't know. If Crollo lives through this arc, I mean, you know, Kurapika's on the boat and Crollo's on the boat. They gotta confront each other.
Everyone's on the boat,
They gotta fight. Everyone's on the boat except for Gon. He's just gone now. We don't need him. He lost his net. He's useless. He's trash. He's worthless. But everyone else is relevant again. Hanzo is relevant again, guys. Hanzo.
But when's Zushi going to be relevant again?
Chapters. I don't know. Maybe he's on the boat too. Maybe he's a secret guy in Kurapika's team that's like on the boat that we don't know about. Maybe Zushi is the reason why the 7 Princes guards have disappeared, guys. Maybe this is Zushi's doing. He made everyone invisible. He stole Hanzo's body.
Yeah.